A homeless woman's single act of kindness toward a lost child becomes the catalyst that exposes a web of corporate corruption and transforms an entire city's understanding of true worth. The rain fell mercilessly on the cracked pavement of Riverside Avenue, each drop creating tiny explosions that seemed to echo the chaos in Maya Chen's heart. She pressed herself against the cold brick wall of the abandoned bookstore, trying to shield the thin blanket that served as her only protection from the elements. Her stomach cramped with hunger. A familiar companion that had been with her for the past 3 months since losing her job at the accounting firm. Maya wasn't supposed to be here. 3 months ago, she had been wearing tailored suits and analyzing million-dollar portfolios for Hartwell and Associates. She had a corner office, a reliable car, and a small apartment that she called home. But one moment of integrity had cost her everything. She had discovered irregularities in the accounts of Sterling Industries, one of their biggest clients. Numbers that didn't add up, transfers that seemed suspicious, patterns that suggested massive money laundering. When she brought her concerns to her supervisor, she expected praise for her diligence. Instead, she found herself escorted out of the building the very next day, her access cards deactivated, her reputation destroyed by whispered accusations of incompetence and mental instability. The official story was that Maya had made critical errors in her analysis, errors so severe that they had nearly cost the firm a major client. HR painted her as unstable, someone who had fabricated evidence to cover her own mistakes. Without proof of her innocence and facing a legal team that could bury her in litigation, Maya had no choice but to accept a settlement that barely covered her rent for 2 months. Now, as she huddled in the doorway, watching well-dressed professionals hurry past without acknowledging her existence, Maya wondered how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. The rain intensified, and she pulled her threadbare jacket tighter around her shoulders, trying to preserve what little warmth she had left. That's when she heard it, a small, frightened voice cutting through the sound of rain and traffic. "Mama! Mama, where are you?" Maya looked up to see a small boy, no more than 7 years old, standing alone in the middle of the sidewalk. He was soaked to the bone, his small frame shaking with cold and fear. His clothes were expensive, designer jeans, a high-quality jacket, shoes that probably cost more than Maya's food budget for a month. But despite his obvious wealth, he looked utterly helpless and terrified. For a moment, Maya hesitated. Getting involved meant drawing attention to herself, and attention was the last thing she needed. The police might question her presence, assume she was up to no good. People might think she was trying to take advantage of a vulnerable child. Every instinct told her to stay hidden, to protect herself first. But then the boy looked directly at her, his wide brown eyes filled with tears and desperate hope, and Maya's heart shattered. She saw herself in those eyes, lost, abandoned, searching for someone, anyone, who might care enough to help. "Hey, sweetheart," Maya called softly, stepping out from her makeshift shelter into the rain. "Are you okay?" The boy's face lit up with relief at seeing a friendly face. "I can't find my mama," he said, his voice trembling. "We were walking and I saw a puppy and I followed it, and now I don't know where she is and I'm scared." Maya knelt down to his level, not caring that the cold pavement soaked through her worn jeans. "What's your name, honey?" "Tommy," he whispered. "Tommy Sterling." The name hit Maya like a physical blow. Sterling. As in Sterling Industries, the company whose accounts she had been investigating when her world collapsed. The irony was almost too much to bear, but looking at this frightened child, she pushed those thoughts aside. Whatever his family had done to her, this little boy was innocent. "Okay, Tommy," Maya said gently, taking off her jacket and wrapping it around his small shoulders. "We're going to find your mama. Can you tell me what she looks like?" "She has long hair like yours, but prettier, and she was wearing a fancy dress for the party," Tommy said, sniffling. "She told me to stay close, but the puppy was so cute, and I just wanted to pet it." Maya looked around desperately. This part of downtown was full of upscale restaurants and event venues. There could be dozens of parties happening right now. But she had to try. "Let's start by getting you somewhere warm and dry," Maya said, taking Tommy's small hand. "There's a coffee shop around the corner. We can call the police from there and they'll help us find your mama." As they walked, Tommy chattered nervously, the way frightened children do when they're trying to convince themselves everything will be okay. "My daddy's really important," he said. "He has lots of meetings and people always want to talk to him. Mama says he works too much, but he promises to take me fishing soon." Maya felt a pang of sympathy for this boy who clearly adored a father who was probably too busy destroying lives to spend time with his son. She squeezed Tommy's hand reassuringly. "I'm sure we'll find your parents soon," she said. The coffee shop was warm and bustling with evening customers. Maya approached the counter hesitantly, acutely aware of her disheveled appearance and the curious stares from other patrons. She had exactly $3.47 to her name, barely enough for a cup of coffee. "Excuse me," she said to the barista, a young woman with kind eyes. "This little boy is lost. Could I please use your phone to call the police?" The barista, whose name tag read Jessica, immediately switched from routine service mode to concerned helper. "Of course. Is he hurt? Do you need me to call an ambulance too?" "No, he's just cold and scared," Maya replied. "But his parents must be worried sick." While Jessica called the police, Maya bought Tommy a hot chocolate with most of her remaining money and wrapped him in her dry sweater. She sat with him at a corner table, helping him warm up and trying to distract him with gentle conversation. "You're really nice," Tommy said, looking up at Maya with trusting eyes. "Most grown-ups don't stop to help kids. They're always too busy." "Sometimes people are just scared or don't know how to help," Maya replied diplomatically, though her heart ached at the wisdom in this child's words. "But there are always people who care, Tommy. You just have to look for them." "Are you someone who cares?" Tommy asked with the direct honesty that only children possess. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, I care." The police arrived within 15 minutes, and Maya explained the situation to Officer Rodriguez, a middle-aged man with gentle eyes and a patient demeanor. He took down all the information and immediately radioed for assistance in locating Tommy's parents. "Any family with the last name Sterling reported a missing child?" Officer Rodriguez asked into his radio. The response came back quickly. "Affirmative. We have reports of a missing 7-year-old boy named Thomas Sterling. Family is at the Grandview Hotel for a corporate event. They're requesting immediate assistance." "We're on our way," Rodriguez replied. He turned to Maya with a grateful smile. "Thank you for taking care of him. Not everyone would have stopped to help." Maya was about to reply when Tommy suddenly wrapped his small arms around her waist. "Will you come with me?" he asked, looking up at her with pleading eyes. "I want my mama and daddy to meet you. You're my hero." Maya's heart clenched. The last place she wanted to go was anywhere near the Sterling family. But how could she explain to a 7-year-old that his father's company had destroyed her life? How could she tell him that his family's wealth was built on corruption that she had tried to expose? "I don't think that's a good idea, sweetheart," Maya said gently. "Your parents will be so happy to see you. They won't need me there. Please." Tommy's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't want you to disappear like the puppy did. I want them to know you helped me." Officer Rodriguez looked at Maya with understanding. "The family specifically requested to thank whoever found their son," he said quietly. "It might mean a lot to them, and to him." Maya felt trapped between her desire to protect herself and her inability to disappoint this child who had somehow managed to touch her heart in just 30 minutes. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll come with you." The ride to the Grandview Hotel was surreal. Maya sat in the back of the police car with Tommy, who chattered excitedly about seeing his parents again. Through the window, she watched the city pass by, a city that had once felt like home, but now felt like a place where she was merely surviving. The Grandview Hotel was exactly the kind of place Maya had once frequented for business dinners and networking events. Now, walking through its elegant lobby in her wet clothes and worn shoes, she felt like an imposter. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and well-dressed guests moved through the space with the confident ease of people who belonged. Officer Rodriguez led them toward the hotel's event space, where a corporate party was clearly in full swing. Maya could hear the murmur of conversation and the gentle clink of glasses through the closed doors. Her stomach churned with anxiety. In a few moments, she would come face to face with the people who had destroyed her life. The doors opened, and Maya was hit with a wave of familiar sounds and smells. Expensive perfume, gourmet food, the kind of ambient jazz that always played at these corporate events. For a moment, she was transported back to her old life, when she had belonged in spaces like this. Then she saw them. A woman in an elegant evening dress was speaking frantically to a hotel manager, her face streaked with tears. Beside her stood a man in an expensive suit, his phone pressed to his ear as he barked orders to someone on the other end. Even from across the room, Maya recognized him from the business photos she had seen during her investigation. This was Richard Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries. "Mama! Daddy!" Tommy's voice rang out across the room, and suddenly he was running toward his parents, leaving Maya standing awkwardly by the entrance with Officer Rodriguez. The reunion was immediate and emotional. Tommy's mother, who Maya now realized must be the Catherine Sterling she had read about in society pages, dropped to her knees and swept her son into her arms, sobbing with relief. Richard Sterling ended his phone call and joined them, wrapping both his wife and son in a fierce embrace. Maya watched from a distance, feeling like an intruder in this moment of family joy. She started to back toward the door, hoping to slip away unnoticed, but Tommy spotted her movement. "That's her!" he shouted, pointing at Maya. "That's the nice lady who helped me. She bought me hot chocolate and called the police, and she gave me her jacket." Every head in the room turned toward Maya. She felt dozens of pairs of eyes assessing her, taking in her obvious homeless state, her wet clothes, her uncombed hair. The murmur of conversation died, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Catherine Sterling looked confused for a moment, clearly trying to reconcile the woman she was looking at with her son's description of a hero. Richard Sterling's expression was harder to read, surprise mixed with something that might have been recognition. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, this is Maya Chen. She found your son wandering alone in the rain and took care of him until we could locate you." Catherine approached Maya with tears still in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "When we realized Tommy was missing, I was terrified something terrible had happened to him. Any parent would do the same," Maya replied quietly, uncomfortable with the attention. "No," Catherine said firmly. "Not everyone would have stopped. Not everyone would have cared for a stranger's child. You saved my son." Richard Sterling had been studying Maya with an intensity that made her nervous. Suddenly his eyes widened with recognition. "Maya Chen," he said slowly. "You used to work for Hartwell and Associates." The bottom dropped out of Maya's stomach. The room seemed to spin as every fear she had about coming here crystallized into reality. Yes, she managed to say. "You're the accountant who tried to destroy my company with false accusations," Richard continued, his voice growing colder. "You fabricated evidence of financial irregularities to cover your own incompetence." The silence in the room became deafening. Maya felt every eye on her, saw the change in people's expressions as they processed this information. Catherine's face showed confusion and growing suspicion. Other guests began to whisper among themselves. "Daddy, what are you talking about?" Tommy asked, looking between his father and Maya with innocent confusion. "She helped me. She's nice." "Tommy, come here," Richard said sharply, his protective instincts overriding everything else. "Get away from her." "But she's my friend," Tommy protested, clinging to Maya's hand. Maya felt her heart shatter as she gently extracted her hand from Tommy's grasp. "It's okay, Tommy," she said softly. "You should go to your parents." "I don't understand," Tommy said, tears forming in his eyes again. "Why is everyone being mean to her? She helped me." Catherine pulled Tommy close, her earlier gratitude replaced by maternal suspicion. "Honey, sometimes people aren't who they seem to be," she said, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. "That's not true," Tommy shouted with the fierce loyalty that only children possess. "She is who she seems. She's kind and she helped me when I was scared, and she gave me her jacket even though she was cold too." Maya felt tears stinging her eyes. This innocent child was defending her while his parents and their guests looked at her like she was a criminal. "I should go," she said quietly. "Yes, you should," Richard said curtly. "Before I call security." "Wait." The voice belonged to an elderly man who had been standing quietly near the back of the room. He stepped forward, his walker tapping against the marble floor. Maya recognized him from newspaper photos. Marcus Sterling, Richard's father and the founder of Sterling Industries. "Dad, you don't need to get involved in this," Richard said, but there was a note of deference in his voice. Marcus Sterling ignored his son and walked directly to Maya, studying her with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. "You're the accountant who discovered the discrepancies in our overseas accounts," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir," Maya replied, unsure where this was leading. "And you were fired for it?" "Yes, sir." Marcus nodded slowly. "I thought so." He turned to address the room, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had been making important decisions for 7 decades. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make." The room fell silent, all attention focused on the elderly patriarch. 3 months ago, this woman discovered financial irregularities in Sterling Industries' accounts. Instead of being thanked for her diligence, she was fired and her reputation destroyed. Why? Because she had uncovered evidence of massive embezzlement being conducted by our chief financial officer, James Morrison, in collusion with several members of our accounting firm. Gasps echoed through the room. Richard Sterling's face went pale. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the investigation I've been conducting since Morrison disappeared to the Cayman Islands 2 weeks ago," Marcus replied. "I'm talking about the $18 million he stole from our company over the past 5 years. I'm talking about the fact that this woman," he gestured toward Maya, "was the only person honest enough to report what she found, and we destroyed her life for it." Maya felt the room spinning. "I don't understand," she whispered. Marcus's expression softened as he looked at her. "James Morrison had been embezzling from us for years, using fake overseas accounts and shell companies. When you discovered the irregularities, he panicked. He convinced our legal team that you were fabricating evidence to cover your own mistakes. He used his position and reputation to destroy yours before you could expose him." "But why didn't anyone investigate further?" Maya asked, her voice barely audible. "Because Morrison was my most trusted employee," Richard said, his voice hollow with shock. "He'd been with the company for 15 years. When he said you were fabricating evidence, we believed him. When he said you were mentally unstable, we accepted it without question." Catherine Sterling looked stricken. "We destroyed an innocent woman's life," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. "Not just innocent," Marcus corrected. "Heroic. She tried to save our company from a thief, and we punished her for it. And today, she saved our grandson, despite having every reason to hate our family." Tommy, who had been listening to this conversation with the intense focus that children bring to adult drama they don't fully understand, suddenly broke free from his mother's grasp and ran to Maya. "I knew you were good," he said, wrapping his arms around her waist again. "I knew it." Maya began to cry, not the quiet tears she had been holding back, but deep, body-shaking sobs that came from months of suppressed grief and pain. Tommy held on to her tighter, and she felt Catherine's hand gently touch her shoulder. "I am so sorry," Catherine whispered. "We are so sorry." Richard Sterling approached slowly, his face a mask of shame and regret. "Miss Chen, there are no words for what we've done to you. No apology that could possibly be adequate. You believed what you were told," Maya said through her tears. "I can't blame you for trusting someone you had worked with for years." "Yes, we can blame ourselves," Marcus said firmly. "We should have investigated. We should have listened. We should have given you the benefit of the doubt. Instead, we took the easy path and believed the comfortable lie." Officer Rodriguez, who had been standing quietly through this entire revelation, stepped forward. "Ma'am, would you like to press charges for wrongful termination and defamation? With what's been revealed here tonight, you'd have a strong case." Maya looked around the room at these people who had inadvertently destroyed her life, and then been forced to confront their mistake. She thought about the months of hunger and cold, the nights spent wondering if she would survive until morning, the crushing weight of believing that she had somehow deserved her fate. But she also thought about Tommy's small hand in hers, his unwavering faith in her goodness. She thought about Catherine's tears of relief at finding her son safe. She thought about Marcus Sterling's courage in revealing the truth, even though it exposed his company's failures. "No," she said finally, "I don't want to press charges. I just want my life back." "You'll have it," Richard said immediately. "And more. We owe you compensation for what you've lost, and a position in our company if you want it. You saved our son's life today, but more than that, you saved our company 3 months ago. You deserve to be rewarded, not punished." "I don't want charity," Maya said with quiet dignity. "It's not charity," Marcus replied. "It's justice. Delayed, inadequate justice, but justice nonetheless." Tommy tugged on Maya's sleeve. Does this mean you won't have to sleep outside anymore? He asked with the innocent directness that had characterized all of his questions. Maya knelt down to his level. I think it means everything is going to be okay, Tommy. Good, he said solemnly, because heroes shouldn't have to sleep outside. Catherine wiped away fresh tears. He's right. Heroes shouldn't have to sleep outside. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations, apologies, and arrangements. Richard Sterling personally called the CEO of Hartwell & Associates and demanded Maya's full reinstatement with back pay. When that proved impossible due to office politics, Sterling Industries offered her a position as their new Director of Financial Integrity, a role created specifically to prevent future embezzlement. Marcus Sterling pulled Maya aside as the evening wound down. I want you to know something, he said quietly. What Morrison did to you, it reminds me of something that happened to me many years ago. I was young, just starting out, and I discovered that my boss was cheating clients. When I reported it, he made sure I was blacklisted from every major firm in the city. What did you do? Maya asked. I started my own company, Marcus smiled. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to us becomes the foundation for the best thing that happens to us. Your integrity cost you your job, but it revealed your character. That character is worth more than any position you could ever hold. As Maya prepared to leave the hotel, Tommy ran up to her one last time. Will I see you again? He asked. I think so. Maya smiled. Your daddy offered me a job, so I'll probably be around quite a bit. Good, Tommy grinned. And maybe next time we meet, it won't be raining. Maya laughed, and for the first time in months, it felt completely natural. Maybe next time we meet, neither of us will be lost. Catherine Sterling walked Maya to the lobby. I know this doesn't fix everything, she said. I know we can't give you back the months you lost or erase the pain you went through, but I want you to know that what you did tonight, saving Tommy, it saved all of us. It forced us to confront a terrible mistake and give you the justice you deserved. Sometimes, Maya replied, the worst moments in our lives are actually doorways to the best moments we haven't imagined yet. 6 months later, Maya stood in her new office at Sterling Industries, looking out at the city that had once seemed so hostile. The corner office was beautiful, with floor-to-ceiling windows and elegant furniture, but what made it special was the framed picture on her desk. It showed her and Tommy at the company picnic, both of them grinning at the camera, both of them exactly where they belonged. Her investigation into the company's financial practices had uncovered not just Morrison's embezzlement, but an entire network of corruption that stretched across multiple corporations. The FBI had opened a major investigation, and Maya's testimony was helping to bring down one of the largest white-collar crime rings in the city's history. But more importantly, her work had led to the creation of the Sterling Foundation for Financial Justice, an organization dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and supporting people who had been wrongfully terminated for ethical stands. Maya served as its director, working to ensure that no one else would have to endure what she had experienced. The foundation had already helped dozens of people who had lost their jobs for reporting corporate misconduct. Maya had created a network of lawyers, investigators, and support services for people who found themselves in situations similar to hers. Tommy visited her office regularly, usually bringing drawings of the two of them on various adventures. His favorite was a picture of them fishing together, something that had become a weekly tradition. Richard Sterling had made good on his promise to spend more time with his son, and those fishing trips often included Maya, who had become like family to the Sterlings. On this particular afternoon, Tommy knocked on Maya's office door with his characteristic enthusiasm. Maya, guess what happened at school today? What happened, kiddo? Maya asked, setting aside her financial reports. Mrs. Peterson asked us to write about our heroes, and I wrote about you. I told everyone about how you helped me when I was lost, and how you were brave enough to tell the truth even when it was hard. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. That's very sweet, Tommy, but I'm not really a hero. I just did what was right. That's exactly what heroes do, Tommy said, with the matter-of-fact wisdom that children sometimes possess. They do what's right, even when it's scary. That evening, Maya attended a dinner at the Sterling mansion. It had become a monthly tradition, a way for the family to maintain their connection, and for Tommy to spend time with his honorary aunt. As they sat around the table, sharing stories and laughter, Maya marveled at how much her life had changed. I have an announcement, Richard said as dessert was served. The board approved Maya's proposal for the Financial Ethics Education Program. Starting next month, Sterling Industries will be offering free courses to accounting students on ethical financial reporting and whistleblower protection. That's wonderful, Catherine exclaimed. How many students will you be able to help? We're starting with 50 students per semester, Maya replied. But we hope to expand it to other universities soon. The goal is to create a generation of financial professionals who understand that integrity isn't just an ideal, it's a practical necessity. Marcus Sterling, now in his 80s but still sharp as ever, raised his glass. To Maya Chen, he said, who taught us that sometimes the people we dismiss the most are the ones we need to listen to the most. To Maya, Tommy chimed in, raising his glass of milk with solemn ceremony. As Maya looked around the table at these people who had become her chosen family, she thought about the night 6 months ago when she had been huddled in a doorway, certain that her life was over. She thought about the moment she had decided to help a lost little boy despite having every reason to protect herself. That single moment of choosing compassion over self-preservation had changed everything. Not just for her, but for the Sterling family, for the dozens of people the foundation had helped, for the students who would learn about ethical responsibility, for the corporations that were now implementing stronger oversight because of the investigation her testimony had prompted. You know what I learned? Maya said, addressing the table. I learned that sometimes, when we think we're at our lowest point, we're actually at our most powerful point. When we have nothing left to lose, we have the freedom to do what's right without worrying about the consequences. Is that why you helped me that night? Tommy asked. Because you had nothing left to lose? Maya considered the question seriously. No, Tommy. I helped you because I had everything to gain. I just didn't know it yet. After dinner, Maya and Tommy sat on the back porch, looking up at the stars. It was their tradition, a few minutes of quiet conversation before Maya went home to her apartment, a real apartment, with heat and running water, and a bed that was actually hers. Maya, Tommy said softly, do you think everything happens for a reason? It was a deep question from a 7-year-old, but Tommy had always been an old soul. Maya thought about it carefully before answering. I think we can find reasons in everything that happens, she said finally. Maybe not right away, and maybe not the reasons we expect. But if we look hard enough, and if we're brave enough to learn from our experiences, we can usually find meaning in even the worst situations. So your bad time was actually a good time in disguise? Maya laughed. I wouldn't go that far. Those 3 months were genuinely awful. I was cold and hungry and scared most of the time. But those experiences taught me things I never would have learned otherwise. They taught me how strong I could be, how kind strangers could be, how important it is to help others even when you think you have nothing to give. And they led you to me, Tommy added with a grin. They led me to you, Maya agreed. And you led me to everything else. A year later, Maya stood at a podium in front of the National Association of Accountants, delivering the keynote speech at their annual convention. Her topic was ethical courage in financial reporting, and the auditorium was packed with hundreds of accounting professionals. 3 years ago, she began, I discovered evidence of embezzlement at a major corporation. I reported what I found and I was fired for it. I lost my job, my apartment, my car, and my reputation. For 3 months I was homeless. I slept in doorways and wondered if I would survive until morning. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. But on the worst night of my life, a little boy got lost in the rain, and I had a choice. I could stay hidden and protect myself, or I could help him despite the risk. I chose to help. That choice changed everything. Maya went on to tell the full story. The reunion with Tommy's parents, the revelation about Morrison's embezzlement, the creation of the Sterling Foundation, the dozens of other whistleblowers they had helped. I'm not telling you this story to convince you that everything happens for a reason, she said. I'm telling you this story to remind you that we happen to everything. We have choices in every situation, and those choices matter more than we can possibly imagine. She concluded with a challenge. The next time you discover something wrong in your workplace, remember that your response will ripple outward in ways you cannot predict. Choose courage over comfort. Choose integrity over ease. Choose to do what's right, even when it's hard. Because somewhere out there, There's a lost little boy who needs you to be brave." The standing ovation lasted for 5 minutes. After her speech, Maya was approached by dozens of attendees who wanted to share their own stories of ethical dilemmas and ask for advice. One young woman, barely out of college, was particularly memorable. "I think I've discovered some irregularities at my company," she said nervously. "But I'm scared of what might happen if I report them. What if they fire me? What if no one believes me?" Maya took the young woman's hands in hers. "Those are all valid fears," she said gently. "But ask yourself this. What kind of person do you want to be? Someone who stays silent to protect herself? Or someone who speaks up to protect others? There's no wrong answer. Both choices are understandable. But only one choice allows you to sleep soundly at night." "How do I find the courage?" the woman asked. "You don't find it," Maya replied. "You create it. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than the fear. Find that something, and you'll find your courage." 6 months later, Maya received a letter from that young woman. She had reported the irregularities she had discovered, and while the investigation was ongoing, she wanted Maya to know that she had chosen courage over comfort. "I thought about what you said," the letter concluded, "about choosing who I want to be. I want to be someone like you." Maya smiled as she read those words, remembering the night she had knelt on wet pavement to comfort a frightened child. She had thought she was just helping one little boy find his way home. She had never imagined that her choice would help so many other people find their way to their own courage. On Tommy's 8th birthday, the Sterling family threw a party that included many of the people whose lives had been touched by Maya's story. There was the young accountant who had found the courage to report financial irregularities at her company. There was David Chen, a former corporate lawyer who had left his job to help the Sterling Foundation provide legal aid to whistleblowers. There was Jessica, the barista who had helped them that first night, and who was now studying accounting with a scholarship from the foundation. As Maya watched Tommy blow out his candles, surrounded by all these people who had chosen integrity over ease, she felt a deep sense of completion. The ripples from that one moment of compassion had spread farther than she could have ever imagined. "What did you wish for?" Maya asked Tommy as he finished cutting his cake. "I can't tell you," he said solemnly, "or it won't come true." "Fair enough," Maya laughed. "But I hope it's something wonderful." Tommy grinned and whispered in her ear, "I wished that everyone could have someone like you to help them when they're lost." Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. "That's a beautiful wish, Tommy." "Maybe it's already coming true," he said, looking around at all the people at his party. "Maybe we're all helping each other find our way." As the sun set over the Sterling mansion, casting long shadows across the garden where children played and adults shared stories of courage and redemption, Maya realized that Tommy was right. They were all helping each other find their way, away from fear and toward courage, away from selfishness and toward service, away from despair and toward hope. The story that had begun with a homeless woman and a lost child had become something much larger. A reminder that individual acts of courage can create collective transformation, that integrity is always worth the price we pay for it, and that sometimes the people who seem to have the least to offer are actually offering the most precious gifts of all. Maya thought about her grandmother, who had always told her that a person's true wealth wasn't measured in money, but in the positive impact they had on others. Looking around at this gathering of people who had chosen to make the world a little bit better, Maya finally understood what her grandmother had meant. She was rich beyond measure, not because of her salary or her apartment or her recognition, but because she had helped create a community of people committed to doing what was right. And it had all started with the simple decision to help a frightened child on a rainy night. As the last guests departed, and Maya prepared to leave as well, Marcus Sterling approached her with something in his hands. "I wanted to give you this," he said, holding out a small, wrapped package. "It's something I've had for many years, waiting for the right person to give it to." Maya unwrapped the package to find a simple silver compass. The inscription on the back read, "For those who help others find their way." "My father gave this to me when I was young," Marcus explained. "He told me that the most important direction we can point others toward is true north, not geographic north, but moral north, the direction of integrity and courage and compassion." Maya held the compass carefully, feeling its weight and history. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'll treasure it." "I know you will," Marcus replied. And I know you'll pass it on to someone else when the time is right. That's how the best gifts work. They keep moving from person to person, spreading their influence wherever they go. As Maya drove home through the city streets, she thought about all the ways a single moment could change everything. 3 years ago, she had been a successful accountant who thought she knew what mattered. 2 years ago, she had been a homeless woman who thought her life was over. 1 year ago, she had been a grateful survivor rebuilding her existence. Tonight, she was something she had never expected to be, a person whose story had become larger than herself, whose choices had created opportunities for others to choose courage over comfort. The compass sat on her passenger seat, catching the light from street lamps as she drove. Tomorrow she would put it on her desk at the Sterling Foundation, where it would remind her daily of her responsibility to help others find their true north. But tonight, as she pulled into the parking lot of her apartment complex and prepared to climb the stairs to her own front door, her own space, her own sanctuary, her own symbol of how far she had come, Maya Chen simply smiled and whispered a quiet thank you to the universe for lost little boys and rainy nights and the unexpected ways that helping others helps us find ourselves. In the end, that was the real lesson of her story, that we are all lost sometimes, and we all need someone to help us find our way home. The lucky ones get to be both the helper and the helped, the giver and the receiver, the one who shows the way and the one who learns the path. Maya had been extraordinarily lucky, but the story was far from over. 2 weeks after Tommy's birthday party, Maya received a phone call that would change everything once again. The voice on the other end was familiar, yet unexpected. "Miss Chen, this is Agent Sarah Mitchell from the FBI Financial Crimes Division. I believe you know my father, Judge Harrison Mitchell." Maya's blood ran cold. The last thing she needed was more legal complications. "Yes, I know your father." "Is there something wrong?" "Quite the opposite," Agent Mitchell replied. "Your testimony in the Morrison case has led us to something much bigger than embezzlement. We've uncovered a network of financial crimes that spans multiple corporations and involves several prominent figures. We need your help." The meeting took place in a nondescript office building downtown. Agent Mitchell turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s who bore a striking resemblance to her father, but with a warmth that the judge had always lacked. "What we've discovered," she explained, spreading files across the conference table, "is that Morrison wasn't working alone. He was part of a sophisticated money laundering operation that involved at least 12 major corporations and several offshore shell companies." Maya studied the documents with growing amazement. The scheme was even more elaborate than she had imagined. "How much money are we talking about?" "Conservative estimate? $250 million over the past 8 years, Agent Mitchell replied. "But here's the thing. Your analytical skills are exactly what we need to unravel this completely. The patterns you identified at Sterling Industries are appearing in multiple companies. We want to offer you a consulting position with the FBI." Maya felt her world spinning once again. "You want me to work for the FBI?" "Temporarily. 6 months, maybe a year. You'd be analyzing financial records from various corporations, identifying irregularities that our regular analysts might miss. The pay would be substantial, and the work would help us take down one of the largest financial crime rings we've ever encountered." That evening, Maya sat in her apartment, staring at the FBI consulting contract. It would mean leaving her position at Sterling Industries temporarily, leaving the foundation work that had become so meaningful to her. But it would also mean helping to ensure that what happened to her would never happen to anyone else. Her phone rang. It was Catherine Sterling. "Maya, Tommy told me he had a dream about you last night," Catherine said. "He dreamed you were a detective solving mysteries and helping people all over the world. I think that little boy might be psychic." Maya laughed, but something in Catherine's tone suggested there was more to this call. "Richard wanted me to tell you," Catherine continued, "that whatever you decide about this FBI opportunity, Sterling Industries will hold your position for as long as you need, and the foundation will continue operating with David Chen as interim director. We believe in what you're doing, and we believe in you." The next morning, Maya called Agent Mitchell and accepted the consulting position. But first, she had one more conversation to have. She found Tommy on the playground at his school during recess, surrounded by friends, but somehow managing to look lonely despite the crowd. "Hey, kiddo," she called out. Tommy's face lit up like sunrise. Maya, what are you doing here? I wanted to tell you about something important, Maya said, sitting on the bench beside him. I'm going to be traveling for work for a while, helping the police catch some bad people who have been stealing money. Tommy's expression grew serious. Like the man who got you in trouble? Exactly like that. But this time, I'll be helping make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Will you be safe? Tommy asked, with the earnest concern of a child who had already learned that the world could be dangerous. Very safe, Maya assured him. And I'll write to you every week. Will you write back to me? Of course, Tommy exclaimed. I'll tell you about school and fishing with Daddy and all the new people the foundation is helping. They hugged goodbye, and Maya felt tears in her eyes as she watched Tommy run back to his friends. This child had saved her life in more ways than she could count, and now she was leaving to save others. The circularity of it felt like destiny. The FBI work proved to be both challenging and rewarding. Maya spent her days in a secure office in Washington, D.C., analyzing financial records from corporations across the country. The patterns she found painted a picture of corruption that was staggering in its scope and sophistication. The money laundering network operated like a hydra, with tentacles reaching into construction companies, technology firms, pharmaceutical corporations, and even charitable organizations. Shell companies were created and dissolved with bewildering frequency. Money was moved through a maze of offshore accounts, and legitimate businesses were used as fronts for criminal activity. But Maya's experience with the Sterling Industries case had taught her what to look for. She could spot the subtle discrepancies that indicated fraudulent activity, the tiny inconsistencies that revealed larger patterns of deception. You have an incredible gift for this work, Agent Mitchell told her, after Maya had identified irregularities in 3 more corporations in a single week. Have you ever considered making this your career? I never imagined I could be good at detective work, Maya replied. But I suppose I've always been good at seeing what doesn't belong. That's exactly what this job requires, Agent Mitchell said. The ability to see what others miss, to ask the questions others don't think to ask. As the weeks passed, Maya's analysis helped the FBI build cases against dozens of individuals involved in the money laundering scheme. She testified before grand juries, briefed prosecutors, and worked with international authorities to track funds that had been moved overseas. But the most satisfying moment came when the FBI arrested James Morrison in the Cayman Islands. Maya watched the news coverage from her hotel room in D.C., feeling a sense of closure that she hadn't expected. Morrison looked older than she remembered, worn down by months of running and hiding. As he was led away in handcuffs, Maya thought about all the people whose lives he had damaged. Not just her, but the dozens of other employees who had been fired or demoted when they asked questions about his activities. Her phone rang. It was Richard Sterling. I just saw the news, he said. How does it feel to watch the man who destroyed your life get arrested? Maya considered the question carefully. Honestly, it feels like justice. Not revenge, just justice. Like the world makes sense again. You made that justice possible, Richard replied. Your courage, your integrity, your refusal to give up. That's what brought him down in the end. 6 months into her FBI consulting work, Maya received an unexpected visitor in Washington. Tommy Sterling, accompanied by his parents, knocked on her apartment door on a Saturday morning. Surprise! Tommy shouted as she opened the door. We came to visit you. Maya was so shocked she could barely speak. Tommy, what are you doing here? We're in town for a conference, Catherine explained, and someone insisted that we couldn't leave without seeing his favorite detective. They spent the day touring the city, visiting museums and monuments, and Maya found herself seeing Washington through Tommy's eyes, as a place where important people made important decisions that affected the whole world. Are you one of the important people now? Tommy asked as they stood in front of the Capitol building. I don't know about important, Maya replied, but I'm definitely someone who's trying to make a difference. That's the same thing, Tommy said with the simple wisdom that had characterized all of their conversations. That evening, as they shared dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Potomac River, Richard Sterling brought up something that had been weighing on his mind. Maya, I've been thinking about what you said that night at the hotel, about not wanting charity. You were right. What we offered you wasn't charity. But I'm wondering if you'd consider something that definitely would be charity, at least from your perspective. I'm listening. Maya said cautiously. Sterling Industries has been approached by several universities about endowing a scholarship program for students who want to study financial ethics. They want to call it the Maya Chen Scholarship for Ethical Courage. Maya nearly choked on her water. They want to name a scholarship after me? Not just any scholarship, Catherine added. A full-ride scholarship for students who have demonstrated integrity in difficult circumstances. Students who, like you, have chosen to do what's right even when it costs them something. I don't know what to say, Maya whispered. Say yes, Tommy interjected. Say yes so other kids like the ones at the foundation can go to college and learn how to help people like you do. Maya looked around the table at these people who had become her family, these people who had started as her enemies and become her greatest supporters. Yes, she said finally, but only if the scholarship includes support for students who are facing financial hardship because they've blown the whistle on wrongdoing. There are a lot of people out there who need help rebuilding their lives after doing the right thing. Consider it done, Richard replied. The scholarship program launched 6 months later with an endowment of $5 million. The first recipients were a diverse group of students from across the country, all of whom had demonstrated extraordinary integrity in challenging circumstances. Maya was invited to speak at the Scholarship Award ceremony, which was held at Sterling Industries corporate headquarters. The auditorium was packed with students, faculty, business leaders, and journalists. 5 years ago, Maya began, I was an accountant who thought integrity was simply about accurate numbers and honest reporting. I learned the hard way that integrity is about much more than that. It's about having the courage to speak truth to power, even when power doesn't want to hear the truth. She told the audience about her journey from successful professional to homeless woman to FBI consultant, emphasizing the role that community and support had played in her recovery. None of us succeed alone, she said. Every time I was tempted to give up, someone showed me kindness. Every time I doubted myself, someone believed in me. Every time I felt lost, someone helped me find my way. She concluded with a challenge to the scholarship recipients. You are here because you have already demonstrated extraordinary courage. But this is just the beginning. The world needs ethical leaders now more than ever. Use your education not just to advance your own careers, but to advance the cause of justice and integrity in whatever field you choose. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. As Maya left the stage, she was approached by a young man who looked familiar. Miss Chen, I'm Marcus Rodriguez. You probably don't remember me, but I was one of the accounting students in the first financial ethics education program class at Sterling Industries. Maya did remember him. A quiet, thoughtful young man who had asked insightful questions about whistleblower protection. I'm starting my master's degree next month, Marcus continued. And I wanted you to know that your class changed my career path. I'm specializing in forensic accounting, specifically to help uncover financial crimes. I want to do what you do. Help people who discover wrongdoing have the support they need to report it. Maya felt a familiar warmth in her chest. The same feeling she had experienced when Tommy had first hugged her in the hotel lobby. That's wonderful, Marcus. The world needs more people like you. The world needs more people like you, he replied. You showed us that one person really can make a difference. As Maya drove home from the scholarship ceremony, she reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. She had started as someone who believed in systems and structures, who thought that doing good work within established frameworks was sufficient to create positive change. Her experience had taught her that sometimes those frameworks fail, and when they do, individuals have to step up and create new frameworks. The Sterling Foundation, the FBI consulting work, the scholarship program, all of these had emerged from her willingness to step outside established systems and create something new. But perhaps the most important lesson was that none of it would have happened without Tommy. A lost little boy on a rainy night had been the catalyst for everything that followed. His innocence and trust had reminded her of her own fundamental goodness at a moment when she had almost forgotten it existed. The next week, Maya received a package from Tommy with no return address. Inside was a hand-drawn comic book titled The Adventures of Detective Maya and Her Sidekick Tommy. The story featured the two of them solving financial crimes around the world, always helping people who had been wronged by powerful corporations. On the last page, Cartoon Maya and Cartoon Tommy were standing on top of a mountain, looking out at a world where justice prevailed and good people were rewarded for their courage. The final panel showed them shaking hands with the caption, Thanks for helping me find my way home, Detective Maya. Thanks for helping me find my way to justice, sidekick Tommy. Maya laughed until she cried, then called Tommy immediately. Did you really make this entire comic book yourself? She asked. Well, Mama helped me with some of the big words, Tommy admitted. But I drew all the pictures and came up with the story. Do you like it? I love it, Maya said. It's the best gift anyone has ever given me. Really? Really. It reminds me that even when we're trying to help other people, we're always helping ourselves too. Every time I've tried to help someone else find their way, I've learned something new about my own path. 3 years later, Maya stood in the federal courthouse in downtown Washington, D.C., watching as the final defendants in the money laundering case were sentenced to prison. Her analytical work had been instrumental in convicting 47 individuals and recovering over $200 million in stolen funds. Agent Mitchell, who had become a close friend over the years of working together, approached her as they left the courthouse. So what's next for the famous Maya Chen? She asked. The FBI would love to make your consulting position permanent. Maya smiled. I've been thinking about that. The work has been incredibly fulfilling, but I think my heart is still with the foundation. There are so many people out there who need support after making ethical stands in their workplaces. I want to focus on building systems that protect them before they lose everything. The Bureau will miss you, Agent Mitchell said. But I understand. Sometimes the most important work happens outside government institutions. As Maya walked out of the courthouse, she thought about the irony of the situation. 5 years ago, she had been arrested and brought to a courthouse in handcuffs, accused of crimes she hadn't committed. Today, she was leaving a courthouse as a respected expert who had helped bring actual criminals to justice. The circle felt complete, but she knew it wasn't really an ending. It was another beginning. The following month, Maya returned to her position as director of the Sterling Foundation for Financial Justice. The organization had grown tremendously during her absence, now operating in 15 states and helping hundreds of whistleblowers each year. But Maya's vision for the foundation was expanding beyond just providing support after wrongdoing had been reported. She wanted to create preventive systems, ways to protect ethical employees before they faced retaliation. Working with a team of lawyers, investigators, and technology experts, Maya developed the Integrity Shield program, a confidential reporting system that allowed employees to document and report potential wrongdoing while providing them with immediate legal and financial protection. The program partnered with law firms, news organizations, and advocacy groups to create a network of support that could be activated the moment someone reported misconduct. Instead of facing retaliation alone, whistleblowers would have immediate access to legal representation, financial assistance, and media support if necessary. The goal, Maya explained to a conference of corporate executives, is to make ethical reporting so well supported that retaliation becomes practically impossible. When companies know that attacking a whistleblower will result in immediate, coordinated pushback from multiple organizations, they'll be much more likely to address the reported problems instead of attacking the reporter. The program launched with support from 23 major law firms and 12 investigative journalism organizations. Within its first year, it had helped protect over 300 employees who reported wrongdoing at their workplaces. Maya's favorite success story was that of Jennifer Walsh, a quality control inspector at a pharmaceutical company, who discovered that her employer was knowingly shipping contaminated medication. Under the old system, Jennifer would have faced the choice between staying silent or risking her career and potentially her family's financial security. Under the Integrity Shield program, Jennifer's report triggered immediate legal protection, financial support, and media attention that forced the pharmaceutical company to recall the contaminated medication and implement new quality control measures. Instead of being fired, Jennifer was promoted and given a commendation for her diligence. "This is what I always dreamed the system could be," Maya told Catherine Sterling as they reviewed the program's first annual report. "Protection before harm, support during crisis, and justice after investigation. You've created something remarkable," Catherine replied. "Something that will protect people for generations to come." As they talked, Tommy burst into the conference room with his characteristic enthusiasm. Now 11 years old, he had grown into a thoughtful, compassionate young man who volunteered at the foundation every weekend. Maya, guess what happened at school today?" he exclaimed. What happened, kiddo? Maya asked, setting aside her reports. Mrs. Peterson assigned us to interview someone we admire for our social studies project. And I want to interview you. I want to write about how you turned something bad into something good and how you help other people do the same thing. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. This boy, who had started as a lost child she helped on a rainy night, had become her greatest teacher and most faithful supporter. I would be honored to be interviewed by you, she said. But can I make a suggestion? Sure. Instead of just interviewing me, why don't you interview some of the people the foundation has helped? I think their stories might be even more inspiring than mine. Tommy's eyes lit up. That's a great idea. I could make a whole book of stories about people who chose to do the right thing. And that's exactly what happened. Tommy's social studies project grew into a 50-page book of interviews with foundation clients, complete with illustrations and inspirational quotes. His teacher was so impressed that she shared it with the school principal, who shared it with the local newspaper, which published excerpts that were picked up by national media. Young author inspires nation with stories of everyday heroes, read the headline in USA Today, above a photo of Tommy presenting his book to Maya at a foundation fundraiser. The book became a sensation, inspiring schools across the country to create their own projects, highlighting ethical courage in their communities. Tommy was invited to speak at conferences and educational events, always emphasizing that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they chose integrity over comfort. On the 5th anniversary of the night Maya had found Tommy lost in the rain, the Sterling family hosted a celebration that brought together everyone whose lives had been touched by their story. The guest list included FBI agent Mitchell, former classmates from the ethics education program, scholarship recipients, foundation staff, and dozens of people who had been helped by the Integrity Shield program. Maya stood in the Sterling Mansion's garden, watching this community of ethical leaders share stories and celebrate their connections. She thought about the young woman she had been 5 years ago, successful but naive, believing that doing good work was sufficient to create positive change. That woman could never have imagined the community she was now part of, the systems she had helped create, the lives she had been able to touch. More importantly, she could never have imagined the deep sense of purpose and belonging that had replaced her old focus on individual achievement. Tommy approached her as the evening wound down, carrying a wrapped gift. I have something for you, he said solemnly. It's for the anniversary of the day we found each other. Maya unwrapped the gift to find a photo album filled with pictures from the past 5 years. Photos of foundation events, scholarship ceremonies, FBI briefings, family dinners, fishing trips, and quiet moments of conversation. On the last page was a recent photo of the two of them standing in front of the foundation's headquarters, both smiling broadly. Beneath the photo, Tommy had written, "To Maya, who taught me that heroes are just regular people who choose to help. Thank you for helping me find my way to my own heroism." Maya began to cry, and Tommy hugged her tightly. "Are those happy tears or sad tears?" he asked. "The happiest tears of my life," Maya replied. "Thank you for everything, Tommy. Thank you for being lost that night so I could find myself. Thank you for helping me, even though you were scared," Tommy replied. "Thank you for showing me that when we help other people, we help ourselves too." As Maya drove home that night, she carried with her the photo album and a heart full of gratitude. The compass Marcus Sterling had given her sat on her dashboard, its needle pointing steadily north. But Maya no longer needed it to find her direction. She had learned that true north wasn't a destination. It was a way of traveling, a commitment to integrity and compassion that guided every step of the journey. 5 years ago, she had been a woman without hope, crouched in a doorway in the rain. Tonight, she was surrounded by a community of people committed to justice and protected by systems she had helped create. The transformation seemed impossible, but it had happened one choice at a time. The choice to help a lost child, the choice to tell the truth about what she had discovered, the choice to forgive those who had wronged her, the choice to build something better instead of dwelling on what had been destroyed. As she pulled into her apartment complex, Maya smiled at the sight of the building that had become her home. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers, and it represented everything she had rebuilt from nothing. More importantly, it was the place where she woke up each morning ready to help other people rebuild their own lives from whatever wreckage they were facing. The story that had begun with a homeless woman and a lost child had become a testament to the power of individual choice to create collective transformation. Maya had learned that we are all lost sometimes, and we all need someone to help us find our way home. But she had also learned that the act of helping others find their way inevitably leads us to our own destination, a place of purpose, community, and deep satisfaction that comes from knowing our lives have made a difference. Tommy had been right in his comic book. They had helped each other find their way, not to a physical destination, but to the understanding that home isn't a place. It's the feeling of belonging to something larger than ourselves, something meaningful and good and worth fighting for. Maya fell asleep that night with the photo album beside her bed and a smile on her face, dreaming of all the lost children still waiting to be found, all the ethical heroes still waiting to be born, and all the ways that choosing compassion over comfort could continue to change the world, one rainy night at a time.